Thank you for joining us for another episode of Bent Not Broken, where we speak with regular folks like you and I who have mustered up the courage to accept everything that has happened in their lives so that they can no longer hold them prisoner and to stand tall in their truth. Today, we'll be speaking with Mavoi Donaldson and Tauna-Shay Murray, who will be sharing with us their journeys as single mothers. All right, Mavoi, Tauna-Shay, welcome to Bent Not Broken, and thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let us get into it. So, Mavoi, give us a little background into your journey. I know we never get up and decide to become single parents. So just give us a little background as to how you ended up there.
Well, I would nobody actually plans to be a single parent because for me, everybody wanted mommy, daddy, and baby, the perfect family. Because initially, I am from a single parent household. So I always said to myself that I do not want my child to be in a single parent household because I felt sometimes it just felt a little bit different not having both parents around, especially sometimes being at a prep school where you had a father-daughter dance and things like that, and you're not able to participate, you know. So I said to myself, whomever I'm going to date, I want to ensure that that's the kind of life I want, the normal, what we say, the normal family. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for me. My journey started for me in university because I had my son, I was pregnant at 19 and had him at 20. But even though being a single parent, I must give him props because during the pregnancy stage, he was there from the beginning every day. At my appointments, he was always there. He actually reached my appointments before me initially, but I'm not sure what happened. I don't know how to say it, but things didn't work out and we went our separate ways, probably when my son was about 3 or 4. So the challenge for me was being a single parent, but also that I was going to school at the time, but then I transitioned quickly and got a job. So it wasn't that bad. But for me, the most challenging thing was he not being there, but financially that was very hard for me. Because I had a lot of bills, but also I just finished university. So having student loan, just getting a job and everything to balance with just time. But for me, what helped me a lot was the support that I had from my mother, especially friends, family. That is what actually helped to propel me to get through.
Okay. So Tauna-Shay, having heard Mavoi's, part of her journey, can you identify with anything that she has just said, or is your journey a little different?
My journey was almost the same. I was just thinking of it. It's two different sides to one coin. For me, I got pregnant in my early 20s. I was like 24, had him at 25. But it's the same thing. I could totally relate in terms of, the father being very, very much present, especially in the early years of my months of the pregnancy and in the early years of my child's birth. And then, it just faded away. I like Mavoi. I don't know what changed, how it changed, but it just took a drastic turn. I mean, he was a pretty much hands-on dad. I mean, I could go to work and feel comfortable knowing that he's at home with my son doing what needs to be done. I had that level of comfort with him. And then in the blink of an eye, the whole thing changed. Once the relationship, hit that point where, we had to go our separate ways. It was like, it's not just me, but it was my son as well that we were separated from.
Unfortunately, that is a story for so many of us. The fact that once the relationship comes to an end, then somehow they are no longer the child's father. And I always try, to understand that, to say how, but based on your experiences, so I'll start to you first, Mavoi. Do you think that, the take themselves out of the picture, probably, to try and quote unquote spite us as the mothers.
Up to this day, I always wonder what is the reason, because I'm saying that some of the times we try to have an amicable relationship.
Right.
I'd say if it is you don't want to speak with me, speak to the child directly.
Mm-hmm.
I think I try to be as civil as possible, but some of the times I'm not sure what it is, but I think sometimes it's just resentment, and unfortunately the child has to suffer.
Tauna-Shay, what's your view on that?
I mean, I don't think it was bitter. I just honestly don't know. I can't pinpoint
It wasn't
what happened. I mean, I couldn't identify him as that type of person. He's very chill, very laid back. I really don't know. And then in my case, I have a child with special needs, So for him to be totally distant from our entire family that we had, it took me a loop, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how did you bounce back from that, Tauna-Shay? Because you just mentioned that you had a child with special needs. So how was that for you? Like, trying to do all of that on your own?
Well, like Mavoi, may her soul rest in peace. I had a mother, and I mean, she was everything. She was my right hand, my left hand, the grandmother, mother. She was everything, in my life in terms of balancing and raising my son. So with her gone, I really and truly rely on my nanny. I mean, she just left a while ago, Miss Thelma, and my friends, they have been support for me all throughout my journey as a parent with a child with special needs. And I mean, it is very hard because if you don't do it,
who else is going to be doing it?
Who else is
There is nobody else.
There's nobody else. So you have to be there for the PTA, you have to be there for the school drop-off, you have the school pickup. And if you can't make it because of work challenges, your little brain has to be ticking 24/7 trying to keep those ducks in a row. And as humans, we all know that we fall short, It has been challenging, but to God be the glory, it always works out for in my favor.
And I'm glad you brought up the point to say as humans we all fall short, because I know for me personally that was always a concern of mine, to say whether I'm shortchanging my child, if it is that I'm not giving him everything or being an effective mother/father, was that a concern for you as well, Mavoi?
Yes, it's always a concern because I'm always wondering, am I doing it right? Am I overstepping? What is it that I'm supposed to do? And especially when it comes to certain male things that you have the knowledge, yes, but you don't have the necessary experience. There are certain things that you just can't do, certain things that you can't say, and certain things that are unrelatable. You'll try to understand it, but for certain things that are solely for a male perspective, you can't explain that. And sometimes I feel a little bit, I wouldn't say a little bit, but sometimes I feel a bit incompetent about it because I'm like, it's nothing short that I can do, but there's nothing that we can do. But what I try to do, for example, that I have some close friends that I basically consider family. So they're the ones that I would reach out to and ask them, can you say a word or two to my son in this area? Can you shed some light? And, just have some one-on-one conversations with him to see where he's at. So he calls them life lessons. So from time to time, he'll have life lessons with them. So that is what helps me sometimes.
And as you brought up that, because I remember of an instance when my son was at Wilma's and they were having father, there was some retreat and it was just supposed to be the father and the boys. And, my son didn't have a father to go with. And they were saying that I was not allowed to go. So I was supposed to go and find a male to go with him. And the closest persons to me at the time would have been my two maternal brothers, and neither of them were in Jamaica at the time. And I felt so defeated in that moment because I felt as though, my son was going to miss out on an opportunity because of me, because I'm saying he didn't choose his father, I did, and it was something that heavily on me where I felt as though in that moment I failed him. So I don't
Yes.
know, Tauna-Shay, do you have any experiences like that where you feel at any given moment like, you're not doing enough?
Boy, that is a daily struggle, you know. That's a daily struggle. You know, boys need fathers. I mean, not just
Mm-hmm.
boys. Children need fathers. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, no matter how we as mothers think that, okay, we're doing our best and our best, you know, we hope it's good enough, but it's
Yeah.
just not.
Yeah.
Kids need their fathers to play whatever role it is in their life, whether it is just to cheer them on or to be that tower of strength for them in their lives, that play
Yeah.
that manly role. And especially raising boys, it is much more complicated because as Maria said, we can't relate to everything that they go through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then with my child, he's like
Yes,
10
I
hands
can
full.
I can hear him in the background.
Yes,
Mhm.
he's 10 hands full, in bubbly, and he, you know, sometimes you just need that male figure, you know, just to take him out and play some basketball, you
Yeah.
know, take him on a walk, take
Yeah.
him to play some football, you know, have that bonding time, show him what I can't show him, you know. I mean, yeah, you know the basics as you
Yeah.
know, just you know, and reading the Google and stuff, but just that manly touch that can make a difference in their lives, we don't have it.
So there's always the issue of Father's Day. And they said single mothers have this thing of putting up and saying, Happy
Happy
Father's
Father's
Day.
Day to me.
Right. Is that
Mm.
something that either of you subscribe to?
All right, for me, I always put up Father's Day is weird. Today is weird for me
Right.
because, like, as I said before, initially absentee father for me, and
Mhm.
then the same thing. So it's like two generations of the
Right.
same thing. So I feel so defeated sometimes on Father's Day. But then, you have the friends who know what you have been through the
Mhm.
struggles. And then they'll send those messages and those messages, those texts, those calls. It does
Right.
turn my whole day around and I feel a lot better. But normally, Father's Day is a very challenging day for me.
Right. But I think the thing that they're not recognizing is that we're not trying to compete with you. We don't want to be the fathers.
We
We don't
wish
want we
the
don't want
father
to be the
was there.
fathers. And there's no way humanly possible for us to be the fathers. But the fact that you have left us with this task and this role and this shoe to fill, then we don't have no choice but to fill it. So for me personally, it's a joke to me when Father's Day and we always say among our friends or my single parent friends, we always say Happy Father's Day to each other because
Right.
whilst we know that it's not possible for us to be the father, but technically in this situation you have left us no choice. You didn't even leave us with a manual to say this is what you need to do, so you have left us here to figure it out on our own. And like you both have said, we don't know, we don't know. I am yet to have certain kind of conversations with my son because I'm thinking that that's not something he's going to want to talk to me about,
I try.
right?
I
And every
try.
now and again I try to say little things, and by saying little things and I realize that he's not so far out. Him know what go on. He's in tune with what's going on.
But I
But
try to have this conversation with my son, being that he is in his late teens. So I know I can't talk to him about everything, but
yeah.
I try. But he would be saying, Mother, it's kind of late. I know what I know already. The world is out there and I'm not that dense. But I still try to have it because at the end of the day, I don't want him to say, Mommy, you didn't say this to me. I didn't know this. So I
Right.
try to have that conversation. It's a bit difficult, but I said, who else? I'd rather to talk to him than somebody else, or he found out, or he finds out, sorry, on his own. So I try to have those conversations. They're a little bit hard to talk about sometimes, but I think that's the best way. We should always try to do it, even though, because at the same time, you don't want them necessarily talking to a stranger, or some of the time, even the
Or the
family member or the
peers.
friend, or the peers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
And
not the
you
same.
don't want certain influences as well.
That is
So
correct.
you
And
have
you
to
don't
be
want
careful
them to
about
be
that.
misinformed as
And you
well.
want to control the narrative as well. So to get
Definitely.
what you want them to know, because the friend and the family might tweak it, and it's not to your liking or how you would want to educate your child. So sometimes you have to grab the bull by the horn and have the uncomfortable conversation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So Tauna-Shay, give us like a day in the life of Tauna-Shay, with having to play the role of mother, father, to a child with special needs.
Okay. So I get up anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 to noise, because him first wake up every morning.
Okay.
So once he gets up, the whole house turn on. So every light, every radio, every TV on. So, I mean, getting him ready for school, breakfast, but the good thing for him, as artists, they have routines, right?
Okay.
So the good thing, I don't have the trouble of making any grand breakfast. He just wants cereal. Getting him ready, driving all the way to UA for school, then head back downtown for office work, and then go on picking him up back for 2 o'clock back home. Then he's very involved, and he wants his time, and he's right beside me right now, because he's my
Yes, because
handbag.
it's his time now, right?
Yes, he never leaves, and we have to watch our news together. That is our ritual. So no matter where I am, and if I'm coming home late, I'm going to record the news for me. So good boy in that aspect.
Nice.
Yes, I'm going to record the news, and I mean, him come like my father. So the host turn on one time and turn off one time, because he won't go to his bed until
once it's his bedtime, it's your bedtime.
Yeah. So some parents, oh, my child goes to bed at 8 and they go to bed. No. I go to bed at 8, then he goes to bed at 8. If it's 1 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock for him, right? So it is a mother from sun up to sundown for me. Being involved in every little aspect, helping him, guiding him. He has special needs. So he is partially nonverbal. Yes. So in terms of looking for cues and identifying what his needs are in the moment, when he has his breakdowns or his meltdowns, identify what the triggers are, try to isolate those triggers and calm him down, So the days can be really, really hectic. But then again, just to know that he's content, he's comfortable, and he's happy, it just gives you the joy that you need to take on the next day.
Right. I know you mentioned just now about him having routines, and I can just imagine that whilst his father was there was a routine that involved him. So when he came out of the picture, did that affect your son in any way?
Look here, man, that was a tough time in my life. So, I mean, at my job, I usually work on weekends. So even in the early part of our separation, he would come on weekends and stay with him. So I was able to 1 second. Sorry. So so I was able to go to work. So he would get here like 8 o'clock. And then when he stopped coming, I have a front window, and he was much younger. He was like 3, 4. He would climb up in the couch and just sit at the window waiting, daddy, 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 daddy. And for the whole day, it was daddy, 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 and he would cry and he would fuss when he wouldn't show up. So I mean, we didn't see him have any contact, didn't see him for about 8 years.
Wow.
Right? And then he suddenly turned, like he made a phone call or an email, I can't remember now, when my mother had just passed. And he was like, hey, I want to come around to see my son. And I'm like, no, because my mother just dead. And then I know once you get back, if he comes one time for the next 3, 4 months, my son is going to be at the window heartbroken crying. So I had to be hard and fast at that time. So I mean, no, he comes around birthdays, probably Christmas, sometimes once in a blue moon. But I guess, as you said, with the routine, he got so used to not seeing him. So no.
Comes like nothing, right?
So it's easier now to face it for him coming and then not being there for another month, 2, 3 months. You know,
Right.
it has become much easier. But when he was much younger child, he would cry for like a month, 2 months straight, waiting at the window for his father. Yeah.
Mavoi, did
They
you
were
have
very
any?
close. Still
Okay,
very close. I
still
mean,
very close.
not taking anything from him. If he doesn't come for 2 years and he comes through the door, it's like he never left because my son is still pretty much attached to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Mavoi, did you have any, experiences like that where, once your son's father, was no longer in the picture, it impacted your son in any way?
Yes, it impacted him some way. Because I normally would take him to visit him, or he would come and visit him and take him by his house. But for whatever reason, some of the time I think he said he had classes or had some activity to do, so he wasn't able to take him for a while. So my son used to ask me, "Mommy, why daddy don't come for me? What?" And there's no response.
Yeah.
I can't answer that question. But what I'm glad to say is that no, every now and again, they will actually go out together. Because like the other day they had Manning Cup, so they're both like sports. So they actually
Okay.
went out together and watched a couple matches. So I'm grateful for that right now. So that's good for me right now.
What I get from like both of you, which I'm happy to hear, get this feedback because I realize how different, situations can be. Because like for my son, I think he has just taken a stance to say that, look, you're not here and I'm just not going to give you the time of day. And I'm thinking it stemmed from the fact that, you show up today and you're here for a day and then you go missing again for a year and then you show up again. And I think he just got tired of the
Yeah.
same, routine
Roller
over and
coaster
over.
up and
Right.
down.
So I
Yeah.
think he has taken a stance for himself to just say, look, I don't want no part of it. So even if it is that he's invited anywhere, he'll decline. He's just not interested. And then it takes me to another important point where us as the mothers we get blamed to say that, we have influenced the child or the children in some way, to build up this kind of resentment
Yes.
towards their fathers. I don't know if you have any experience like that, Tauna-Shay, where you are made out to be, the enemy.
Well, not that I'm aware of. I
Okay.
can't say no, but because I mean, I always open the communication channel. I'm not bitter, I'm not angry, I'm just
Right.
over. Right. So I mean, if you want to come, it's like okay, no, I'm not here. I'll come next week. I'll take him. Just pretty basic and conversation. I don't try to get too emotionally involved because that's
Right.
when anger comes up, and at this point I'm just over it.
That's
Right.
true.
So,
Yeah.
Mavoi, have
Well,
you
for
ever
me,
been?
yes, it has been said before that as the one who was instigating this, but what I said was, if it is that you don't want to speak to me, you can speak to the child directly. So what I did was from an early age, I gave my son a phone.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is that you don't want to speak with me, that is fine. You can always speak directly to the child because you have his own contact number and his own phone. So that means you can call him at any point in time and text him and do any form of communication. So it doesn't have to be routed through me. The
Right.
only thing I require is that if you're going out, you can say the date, the time, where you're going. That's all I require. Nothing more.
Makes sense. I did the very same thing, to provide my son with a phone and gave him the contact. And I said, look, contact him directly. Because like for me personally, I don't know, my situation, like my son's father was a trigger for me. And he knew all the things to do to get under my skin.
Yeah.
And, all the things to do to really, really, really get me out. And as soon as I was able to identify how his presence negatively affected me, I decided that I had to cut all ties, cut all communication. And by this time, my son was of age. He had his phone. He was able to communicate with him directly. And I said to him, do that. But even with providing all of that, there was still an issue because he still felt obligated, like he had to have direct contact to me. And I remember at one point he said, if it is that he is not able to WhatsApp me because I blocked him from everything. So he's saying that if he's not able to WhatsApp me and communicate with me directly, then he's not going to do anything to support the child. So in that moment, you recognize that it's no longer about the child.
It's about you.
It's about you. Right. And I don't know if you guys have ever felt that way, like, whatever is happening now, it is not really about the child. It's because you exited the situation. I don't know, Tauna-Shay, you feel, that you're being a single mother now, it's because you decided to call the relationship quits.
Yeah, it is. So so the last time I saw him, backstory. So we lived together. He moved out, but when he used to come on the Saturdays, he was dating the girl across the street, and it was totally fine. However, when the issue was that I moved on and I went on a date, and he heard that I went on a date, and then after that, it was like poof. So yeah, and then I didn't hear from him for 8 years.
Yeah, so while he was moving on with his life, you were supposed
he's
to
moving right along.
Yes, stay stationary.
Yes, I must stay and wait and look.
Wait on him.
Hope. Yes.
Mavoi, do you think, your son's father not being there was because you decided to call the relationship quits?
Initially, I thought so, but I can't understand why they operate the way they do. Because I'm saying, if for whatever reason that we separate, it has nothing to do with the child. Right. We both brought the child here. So it's both our responsibility to look after the child.
There you go. And I know, persons always make us out to be like we're difficult. And I do know that you have some mothers who makes it difficult for fathers who really want to be in their children's life. I'm not going to take that away from them, because you really do have some men who want to be a part of their child's life. But, some of us, we're bitter and we decide that, look, no, we're going to try get back at them, and, so I do know that happens. But
that is true.
Yeah, but outside of all of that, like, I try to think, like, what's the thought process? Like, when they get up and you don't know what's happening with your child. You don't know if they're living. You don't know how they're eating. You don't know, like, have you guys ever had like that conversation, with the fathers to say, look, what's going on? You don't know anything about it. You don't know how they're surviving. Like, have you had that conversation, that one-on-one, and what was the response to it?
Nothing.
I've never I've never had it. It never even crossed my mind. I just know that, okay,
you just have to do what you have to do.
Do what you have to do and move on.
Exactly. It's to me initially, you'd want to question yourself, say, what did I do? Is it something I did? Is it something I said? What am I doing wrong? What did I do to deserve this? But then at the end of the day, you're like, all right, you're not there. You're not playing your part. So guess what? Yes, you feel sorry for yourself. I'm not gonna lie. I've cried so many times over it, saying, what is this? What am I going to do? Why am I in this position? But then I have to say, get myself together. Yeah. There's nobody else to do it. You have to do it. So you have to get yourself out of that pity party, as you say, and move on.
Definitely.
You have to take away emotions from it. Because if you're going to carry emotions in it, you're not going to get anywhere. It's just going to make you more depressed. For me, it probably sounds cliched, but one of the things that helped me was one day they were having a sermon at church. And I actually went in, and they said, if you have anything that you want to take off your mind, to take off your chest, write it down on a piece of paper. And as cliched as it sounds, and I wrote his name and I dropped it in that box and they prayed for me.
Mm.
And honestly speaking, I felt a little bit better. I felt lighter. And from then on, I forgave him. And when I
Right.
forgave him, it was able for me to move on. And I realized my
Mhm.
life got a little bit better because I
Yes.
think I wasn't as angry anymore. And I stopped
Yes.
questioning, why is this happening to me? Why it keep happening? Why didn't anybody else? But
Right.
then honestly, that day from church, that day made a whole difference for me.
And Mavoi, you just touched on a very important point, the fact that, you know, how important forgiveness is in all of this. Because as you can imagine, we're upset, you know, and we're mad, and we
Angry.
hate them, and, you know, everything. And, you know, sometimes we look at me and say, boy, if something for happen to the man, tomorrow nobody call my phone and tell me something happen to the man, I come in a business, we not, you know, we not care and whatever. But then you realize that despite all of that, and despite you being so upset with them about, you know, their inability to be the father you need them to be to the child, them still a live for them life, you know.
Thank you.
Nothing has stopped for them.
Nothing
So
has
I
stopped.
think that was a wake-up call for me personal, the fact that, you know, I had to forgive him to be able to move on, because
Exactly.
it was eating me up inside.
It
Like
was
that
eating
killed
me
me inside.
Yeah.
But while I was here, you know, pretty much self-destructing, he was just jumping from a plane, on a plane, going here, there, everywhere. It was every minute it was somebody else, you know, about 3 different fiancé at one point, and, you know, he was just living. It was nothing to him. So,
Right.
you know, I recognized how important it was for me to just forgive him, to be able to move on. Tauna-Shay, was that something you had to, it was that a hard task that you had to take on to try and forgive him? Even though, you know, in most cases, they don't really deserve the forgiveness, you know, but you have to forgive for yourself.
I let go. From Zion just stop being at the window crying. I was over it. As long as he was fine, it was
Yeah.
like, okay, move on. That was it. You know, my crux in the entire thing was the effect that it had on my son.
Yeah.
Especially months every Saturday religiously at 8 o'clock going to the window. So
Right.
once he was over it, so was I, because at that point, his father became a non-factor. Yeah, and I mean, I was hurt only for him,
Right.
only for my child. But outside of that,
So you
it
say
just
your heart never mash up for the man, it just hurt.
no time.
Tauna-Shay, you strong though.
Bad.
Bad. No,
It
sir.
look like Tauna-Shay did exit the situation mentally already, you know. So
Right.
That is
when the
it.
man
That
leave,
is
no, she
it.
just be like,
That
all
is
right,
it.
bye.
No, Tana. Well, for me, it wasn't that easy.
No,
I was traumatized.
No.
you were like,
I,
oh,
I got
some
out
of why you were like, why did he leave me?
Yeah, because man, first love, first heartbreak.
Oh, okay.
So I was saying, no, this is going to be my husband.
Oh yes, oh definitely, definitely. I know that feeling.
Right?
Because, you know, yes, this is your one and only, you
The
know. This is
only my first love, and
and that
everything is
was
gonna
one of the
last.
things too, that, you know, why I stayed in that situation, as toxic as it was, because I kept saying I didn't want my son to be in a single parent home. You know, I want this nuclear family, the family that society has told me is the ideal family to have. You know, I want that, I want white picket fence, I want all of them niceness there and whatever. So even though I was in the situation and I was slowly dying inside, I was still there trying to make things work, because me, I said, boy, I want my son to have this, you know, I don't want to take this away from him, I don't want to rob him of it. But I think another thing that we don't realize is that while we're there, children are seeing everything that's happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, just being in that toxic environment is doing them more harm than good. And if it is that we are setting these examples, you know, for the children, then what we expect them to do afterwards. You know, later on in our life, them feel as though whatever it is that we went through, or, you know, the examples that we have set for them by staying in these toxic relationships, that it's the norm. you know, and I'm sure we don't really want that
Right.
for our
But at the
kids at
same
all.
time, I never want to leave so quick, because I say, you know what? Remember,
Like it
everybody
a
go through
chance.
problems, but don't want to give up. Go and keep on trying. Remember? Remember I saying that if you want good, your nose have to run, you have to try another first mistake. You must
Tauna-Shay is like,
and
no alone,
forget
not
and
me.
move on. No for you, Tauna-Shay.
Tragodas.
Tauna-Shay, not me. Uno alone.
Not me. My tracksuit tight, lace up. I'm ready.
You're gone.
It's peace for
No,
me.
I know, man, because I'm saying, no, man, we're going to try and see if we can work.
We know that
Not
try
give
something
up.
too, my boy. That's true. Made it up on
Right?
that same ship.
And then I said the first time,
Not too long.
no, we're gonna try again. Try for the child's
No,
sake.
my
People
my
were
my
different.
saying was let me stick to the evil when I know ya. Can
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
left, I'm gonna pick up somebody
And I
or
forgot.
worse.
No, I'm gonna tell somebody to start over. You know it hard to start over.
Oh yes.
So I think I'm saying no, me used to it. Me used to this already. Me know when you tell the truth. Me know when you tell lie. Me know when you go wrong. Me know everything about you already. So if we go start, if we go figure out and know somebody, no, can't manage that right now. But I think, and also you get probably a little bit comfortable where you
Look
are.
at your comfort will have you looking like a fool. That
Yeah.
will have you looking like a fool because you will know for a fact that look, this is not where I'm supposed to be. But when you think about having to start all over again, like you say, you think like say, no, I bet I'm just stay right as so.
Right as so.
But I'm glad for us here that we finally saw the light and we were able to move on. But let me just ask you guys, Tauna-Shay, what is your motivating factor? What drives you every day? Because like you said, having a child with special needs, it must get tiring at some time, and it must, have some kind of effect, like negatively affected some way. So what is your motivating factor? What drives Tauna-Shay to be this super mom?
The example that was given to me, truth be told, because my mother was everything and much more to me. So seeing what she went through as a single mom herself, we are wanting everything picking it, from she could do it, I know that I could do it too.
That's true.
And he's a lot of work, but he's a lot of joy at the same time. The love that he gives you, you can't find it anywhere. And just to ensure that people always look at persons in general with special needs, but them always say you're big like you're blind and you're this and you're that. When you see my child, you know that he's well fed, he's well taken care of, and he's loved. And that is what I want to put forward. I want to break the stigma. Okay, children or adults or persons with disabilities look a certain way, they behave a certain way. They're less than. Not my child. He has everything that he wants. He has everything that he needs. And if I have to work 24 hours a day to get it for him, he gonna have it. And that is my belief. Make me look poor and look I look like I live nowhere. I have nothing. But
no.
When you see him, you see Bill Gates, right? And that is my belief. And just ensuring that he has a good life. I was afforded a comfortable life, and I'm just trying to better that for him.
Right.
And that is what
you touch on something that them they use a mash Mavoi can't. Mavoi, you said somebody said to you at one point that you didn't look like a single mother. So
yes,
apparently there's a look that us single mothers supposed to have.
Yes. So back in the day, or not too long ago, somebody said to me, we were just having casual conversation, and somebody said to me, and I said, I'm a single parent. And then the person paused, and then another person said, you don't look like a single parent. So I'm like, what should a single parent look like?
You want to know? Just
I'm like,
very curious
too. Look like? So I'm saying, am I supposed to come and cry every day and seem depressed and say I can't afford this, I can't buy this, I need this? No.
But that would be the expectation, But they don't know that might be happening behind the scene, But we're not going to bring it to the fore. Because like many times, in my own personal situation, when there was a need, first thing first, I try not to let my child be affected by that need. I go without something,
Yeah.
but everything for him needs to be taken care of. Because me I look at me and say, look, me go pick up the man and have picnic with the man. So my child cannot be at a disadvantage because of my bad choices. So
That is true.
I need to ensure that everything is done for him, and whatever else can do, then that's fine. There were times when I had to be ruffling my bills, and people look at me and think like, really? And I'm saying yes,
That
you
is
know.
true. I remember.
You're right. You weren't earning enough to be able to cover everything, so you just had to do what was important
Let me tell you
first
a
and
story.
foremost.
I remember one time because I said to myself that if my mother could do it back then when life
Mhm.
was harder and sending me to a prep school, I am sending my child to a prep school.
Mhm.
I remember one day when the school fee came, the school fee was more than my take-home salary
Mhm.
for the month. I remember your take-home salary, you're not going to get that for, Remember, I have student loan, car loan, insurance, daycare, aftercare, bus.
Mhm.
But I said, no, I'm not going to pull him from school.
Right.
I'm still going to send him. So you know what I had to do? I start to budget myself. You see, from the first school fees paid,
Mhm.
the next month, that is how I have to pay it in parts. Piece,
Okay.
piece, piece. So if it's 3 months and it's 90,000, it's 30,000 I pay each month. I
Mhm.
can't pay it one time, so I have to pay it in
Right.
parts.
Right.
So as parents, those are the things that we had to deal
The
with.
sacrifices that we
Sacrifices.
make. And then even with doing all of that, people still expect people to come out a road and some chirp clothes and look the worst, than anybody else. I don't know
Not
why,
going
but
to. But we have to balance it.
just so everyone knows, single parent, we don't have a look. Okay, there's not a look that we have.
Exactly.
We glow.
There you go. There you
We
go. Because
glow.
all this love that was supposed to have been shared, between two
Yeah.
parents, we're
All
getting
of it just
all
came
of
our
it.
way.
All of it. So that is why when you see us, we don't look like what we're going through because of the love that our children is pouring into us. That's what they need to understand. So there's some
That is
final words to wrap up, Tauna-Shay, just for anybody, any single mother, listening to this program, what words of encouragement you would want to share with them?
The road might be rough, but don't give up. Don't give up. I mean, your child is looking to you for strength. You are the person that your child should be emulating. It just day by day, one step at a time, and always include God in your decision making, because I can tell you, sitting here, God has done too much for me. I'm so undeserving. There are many days that God comes through right on the catch for me. So just trust God, trust your motherly instinct, and just do what you can for your child and yourself. Don't forget self-care, even
Mm-hmm.
though you're a single mother, because
Yes.
your mental wellness, your physical wellness is what your child will need.
Yes. Because they'll be feeding off your energy. So you have to ensure so your energy up.
You're always at your best self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even when you don't feel like it, just dig deep. Yeah.
Amen to that. Mavoi, what words you'd want to leave, for anyone watching this interview and a single parent watching this interview?
I think it's not easy. Just don't give up. Some of the times you feel like you want to give up and there's no other way out and there's no alternative. But that's the time when you're supposed to, as you said, Tauna-Shay, dig deep. When you dig deep, that is when you find out that some of the times that's when the best self comes forward.
Amen to that. All right, ladies, it was a pleasure having you here on Bench Not Broken, and sure this was a very fruitful conversation. Sure there are many more like us, all around. It is so unfortunate that that has become, single parent has become,
The
the
new norm?
go-to and has become the new norm. The new norm is correct. But hopefully, hopefully, with the children that we are raising, hopefully they'll come out to be better men, and we'll make a difference in the society. So I want to thank you both for being here with us today and for sharing your individual journeys and your stories.
Thanks for
All right,
having
thanks
me.
again for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
by Stacy Speaks Tribe, like I always say to you, you have everything you need within you to survive and to thrive. And if you are ever in doubt, look at Mavoi and Tauna-Shay, use them as your examples. When it became time for them to pivot and to take on the role of single mothers for their children, they did just that. They weren't prepared, but after digging deep, as Tauna-Shay said, she was able to find what she needed, way down there to be able to overcome that situation. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Bent Not Broken, and we'll see you next week.